What is up, gang? Here we are again. Thank you so much for joining. It's episode 41, and we're talking about mental health, as you might have surmised from reading. If you can read, then you know. Maybe you're listening to podcasts because you can't read, and now I just told you, so at least you know. And we appreciate everyone joining us. Much love to all the people that have shown support as the podcast is growing. It means the world. And big up to Nicholas Ortiz and Danielle Eckert for coming on and talking and discussing with us on this one. It's a really big, important topic, I think. And speaking of, let's listen to XXX here, kind of break the vibe down for us. I'm gonna have to get some real produced music that's not copywritten because I'm not gonna get away with this for much longer. Just using actually famous songs. But that's Hope by XXXTentacion, and of course his story is very relatable to this issue. And he's the late great artist, obviously. That there's mixed feelings about him, but I think his message is more summed up in this song about hope than anything else. So. And of course, did I say this already? I don't think I mentioned this, but I think I talked about it in the podcast, but we're not medical health professionals. All right. So I should preface this whole thing by letting everyone know, obviously, you need to seek the mental or medical help or whatever kind of professional help you need, or just help from your own friends and things. But, this podcast discussion is meant to help inform and discuss and bring more of these ideas and realities to light, because I think everyone faces struggles with mental health, whether, they're severe or not is, just kind of up to fate, it seems. But I think that it's an important topic to bring to light. And I think that, it's really inspiring to hear Nick's story, just having this conversation with Nick, and just him being vulnerable enough to share it with all you guys, I think is one of the biggest things that is helping this movement forward and helping us all just tackle these things together. So I can't thank him enough for coming on and sharing the story. This is just mostly going to be talking about Nick's experiences with this and some of the insights he's gained. And Danie is his girlfriend and a longtime friend of ours that has been close to the situation, so offers some great insight as well. I just can't thank you guys enough for joining me. I hope you guys enjoy this one. I hope you get part of this discussion. That's I think mostly what we wanted to accomplish when we decided we were going to work on this and have this episode is Nick wanted to share his story because, part of the message is we want to create spaces to talk about this stuff, to create and open up this discussion and not shy away from it so much because it doesn't seem to be working, that technique of slipping it under the rug or sweeping it under the rug or whatever. So without further ado, here we go with Nicholas Ortiz and Danie Eckert. Thank you guys. See you soon. Peace. Whenever.
Yeah. Ready to go?
We are live. We are live now in 3, 2, 1. Say hello to our viewers. Oh shit! Welcome, guys. Damn, I don't know what to say. We have a new guest, Danielle Eckert.
Hi.
Pronounce it correctly.
You did it right. That's how you say the name.
Thanks. It's good to not fuck your name up after knowing you for 5 years.
Because knowing each other for 5 years?
Probably. Almost that long. Maybe that long. Maybe 4.5. Maybe 3.5.
It's
been 1 year, and I just think it's been a long time.
It's
really tough to know you, actually. And time just creeps by when you're around. I don't know if you knew that.
I've never been so flattered. Thank you so much. Oh my God, Brandon. I'm so honored to be here.
Oh my God. Yes. We're really glad to have you. And of course, a repeat champion guest.
Guest.
I mean,
I'm no Tim champion.
I want to start giving out the belt, the belt for podcast, HEIGHT Drop Guest of the Year. You know what I'm saying?
So who do I get to fight to defend my title?
I think you're up against
Max, right?
Probably Max Henry's up in the mix.
Yeah.
Of course it is. My squid boy.
If I'm up to date, I'm pretty sure it's
Yeah, that's-
Max is like the other person fighting for the number of times.
There was another like Tim Champion and Hendo did some. They had some fire. They brought some fire to the podcast that episode.
Well, Hendo's a bitch.
You know, it's gonna be up for the people. Oh shit!
No, I love
shade.
I love you,
Shots
Hendo.
fired.
I'm just kidding. Don't beat me
Damn,
in the speed
Hendo.
comp. The people's champ. He's gonna beat me.
That's the thing is he's the people's champ.
He is the people's champ.
So you're gonna be if we put it up to a vote, it's gonna be tough.
Although if I beat him out, then I become the people's champ. No,
That might be the way it works. I don't know.
I'm coming for Joe Senderson, man.
Joe Sanderson. Ooh, shit. Damn, dude. All right. Shots fired already. We appreciate that. Bringing fire to the podcast. But yeah, we got Teeny Tiny Hand in the mix as well today. This is just so you guys all know. That's Teeny Hand. That's Tiny Hand. I was telling this to Nick earlier. Tiny Hand, then you got Teeny Hand. So you got to give it up.
Where did you even get that?
There's like a little knick-knack, like kite store, little toy store on Pearl Street here that has
I
like
know
all
the
this
store.
shit and like,
Bad place.
you know, tiny hands were just like the thing. You know, they're part of the
I've never seen
culture now.
those outside of like YouTube videos, so they're actually bigger. I guess I
They're-
kind of anticipated all the Tiny Hands videos to be the size of the teeny tiny hand.
Oh
I'm surprised actually how big Tiny Hand is.
Well, it's got to fit on your finger.
It makes sense,
Yeah.
but like I don't know, my fingers. I don't know, whatever. It just is bigger than I was anticipating.
That's what you want to hear, boys. Yes, but we are here to talk about a bunch of different things, but like namely, we wanted to discuss some more mental health stuff, right? I mean,
Yeah.
that was something that we're all going through, and like it's still a hot topic for a lot of us as parkour athletes, as people in the generation, whatever the fuck generation we are. Is it Y, X, millennials?
Well, we're millennials.
We're past millennials, aren't we?
No.
We're millennials, and then kind of.
It's-
I think the kids who are like in high school now.
86 to 2000 or
Is
84.
millennials?
Yeah, it's like 84 or 86 to 2000
Okay.
is millennials, and then all of the kids that are like now like just turning 18 or under 18, they're another generation of
Is it
fucked up people, just
Gen
like we
Z?
are.
Yeah.
I don't know what they
think
are.
it's
Has
Z.
there
but-
ever not been a fucked up generation?
No, that's the
everyone-
thing. Everyone thinks there is, hasn't.
Yeah, and every generation thinks that like
Everyone-
the one above and below them is shit. And
Yeah.
so
You
we're
guys
all-
don't know shit. we had it harder.
Dude, it's actually
You fucking
funny.
don't know anything.
Yeah.
If you go back and watch like some old George Carlin stuff, you hear him talking about like baby boomers and
Oh, yeah, I
everything, and
love that
it's
bit.
literally the exact same words that baby boomers say about us. So I'm like,
Yep.
okay, cool. It literally just goes from generation to
Dude,
generation.
no, like some of like the most old
Philosophers.
philosophers have
Yeah.
been like, oh, like I
Like
I wish I
Socrates
could
and
remember.
everything.
Yeah, it was Socrates.
Yeah.
It was like, oh, I fear for the generation below us or something like that.
So they
It's
don't
like,
handle life, and they're a
it's
bunch
just
of
been
whiny
the
babies.
same shit
for
since the beginning
You
of
had
time.
everything given to you, and you pissed it away, and we had to fucking struggle. The
Yeah.
struggle was real for us, but yeah, I don't
that's
know.
the
It's
thing.
so
It's
strange.
like-
it's like that's how it feels, though.
Well,
Yeah.
I
I think that's just part of the human condition.
Well, I think each
Probably.
generation like gives something to the next generation, and then that next generation has something different to deal with that the other one didn't, and they just
Yeah.
don't understand. And they're like, "Fuck you! I didn't deal with that. It's easier
That's
to
fair.
deal
Yeah,
with
yeah, because
this."
we're all doing different work. I mean, that's like kind of a good sign, right? Because
Yeah.
at least we're not trying to do the same problems over and over.
Yeah,
I mean,
I
they
feel
kind of like morph and kind of come back as like I
I
don't
think
know.
it's been like extra pronounced. I mean, this is just a thought, but like, I mean, ever since the Industrial Revolution, technology and like the world and society like advances at such a different rate now that I feel like the generations are so much more like defined and pronounced. Like what you're saying, like the problems of each generation is so different than the problems of the next generation because shit's changing
Yeah,
on
when
a
you were in
yearly and now a
Mongolian horde
daily
back
basis.
in the day,
Yeah.
your dad and you had the same shit. It's
Well, I mean, like think about it. Back in like the turn of the century or turn of like the 20th century?
when is that for us
Like 1900s.
non-history buffs?
1900s.
Us
So I mean, like
dummies out here. We're like turn of the century. I'm like, I think that means the 1900s.
1900s.
Hey, you know what? I didn't have enough coffee today, all right, guys? I only took
Fair.
2 alpha brains today. I needed 3 to keep up with this
Anyway,
turn of the century.
like just if you think about like how different. I mean, don't even get like the war. I don't know. I guess I don't have anything intelligent to say about it, but like I don't know. Like shit changed a lot, especially over the last like 100 years, like 120 years. 200 years.
Hell, you can even just talk about the last like 25 years.
I know, but that's the thing though. It's like now it's just even more.
Well, yeah, with
exaggerated.
the internet, it's like
Yeah.
it seems like
Daily,
it's accelerating. See, like
Hourly. Actually, honestly.
yeah, hourly, for fuck's sake.
Yeah.
Yeah, and like that's been like one of the stories of our generation for sure. Is like we were kind of millennial the first one to really grow up with the internet.
Yeah.
So that
Like
was-
as like a part of our childhood and our youth.
Millennials were.
Because Generation X had the internet, but they were adults by the time it like hit them, right?
So millennials in general are the ones that were around to see pre-internet time, but
yeah,
we're young.
we still remember the old way.
But like I don't know, like if
We
you
know
were
like
born,
what it's like to have to call people and
We grew up with like corded phones, and now we have a computer phone in our
Okay,
hand.
but like if you were born in 1999, did you know pre-internet?
nah, you didn't know shit.
Right. So I'm just saying, like the last millennials, like the kids that are like
Yeah.
19 and 20, like they
They're
might
like-
have been like infants or something. When
Yeah, they might have, like,
I don't know.
some
It's like
small
an arbitrary
memories.
cutoff, but yeah, the majority of the millennials like had a childhood pre-internet and
Yeah.
saw the internet happen like in their childhood,
Yeah.
which is fucked up.
Why is it fucked up?
The internet's a fucked up place. Like, I don't
Yeah,
know.
it is.
I mean,
It
just
kinda
like
is,
think
yeah.
of, I don't know. I mean, like whatever.
But that's the thing is like this is like why generations go back and forth. I feel like, or like it's always the same story. Is like we always get new technology that is fucked up, like the internet, but it also like provides us with a bunch of.
no, totally.
It's a double-edged sword, like right. It's
I'm
like
not
without the
gonna
internet,
ease.
who the fuck like no one would be able to even talk or listen
No,
to
this
us.
would
Like
be-
I wouldn't know Nick. Like I wouldn't parkour wouldn't be a thing. You know, in the same way, like all these things are given to us, and then also.
The good comes with the
burn
bad,
us.
and
They
bad
burn
comes
us,
with
I
the
guess,
good.
in some ways.
It's like a kind of a balance, I suppose.
Excuse me. Yeah.
Sexy.
Yeah. Thanks, guys. I'm not even drinking sparkling water today. I don't know what's going on.
Just gassy boy.
Anyway,
I'm not.
internet
Yeah.
stuff.
Yeah.
Don't call me gassy boy. I don't like that one bit. I'm not gassy boy.
Hey, right, I'm gassy boy.
You can be. Yeah, you are gassy. You're trumpet ass. Is like what I like to call you, or trombone ass.
Yeah, for those of you that don't know, I had this uncanny ability to just like scream from my ass, essentially.
Fucking disgusting thing. to say.
Yeah.
It really is, but like it's also
Scream?
impressive. So
All right. We're getting. Woo, all right. I mean, I'd love to go down that road,
yeah, but
but
let's not go down. We'll do that for a different time.
We got business to attend to.
Yeah.
in a way. I don't know. Just like I guess I could just open it up to you, Nick. Like you had an experience recently, right? That was one of the reasons why you want to come on is to talk about it and share your experience.
Yeah, so I do just want to be honest. Like today is Sunday, so 2 days ago I just got out of mental hospital, spending about not a long time at all, but just 2.5-ish days.
Mm-hmm.
I want to say. And the whole reason that kind of started it is probably for the last, honestly, probably like the last 8 years or so, I've had some pretty passive suicidal thoughts. So not necessarily anything I've acted on, but things I've constantly thought of and contemplated. And the biggest ones kind of just being like, I really just like to kind of go to sleep and not really wake up.
Mm.
And so the whole reason I ended up there in the first place is the whole last week, kind of starting on Sunday or Monday of last week, I just kind of woke up and then just nothing felt valuable or worth it at all whatsoever. So I would just kind of get up in the morning. Food didn't sound interesting. Training didn't sound interesting. Seeing my friends didn't sound interesting. Like I didn't want to go to work. I didn't want to work on anything. I just wanted to lay in bed and just not be in the world anymore.
Yeah.
And so Tuesday comes up. I had to go see my therapist, and it just felt really bad. Like I kind of just didn't feel. I almost felt numb more than anything. Like more than sad. Like I couldn't cry. I couldn't do anything.
Mm.
And so I went to go see my therapist, and I told her that, and then finally started crying as I was talking to her, and basically just said like, I went to go sit down, and she does this feedback loop thing with me, which is basically I sit down, listen to some weird music for like 33 minutes, I think it is, and I have these wires attached to my head, and the whole idea behind it is it's supposed to help kind of relax your central nervous system to sort of make.
Is it like those binaural beats that are like?
No, it's not. It's not really binaural beats. It very much sounds like kind of like music that it goes from a mix, like it's a bunch of different types of songs, and and they kind of flow into each other weirdly. And it's like
is it supposed to take you like through like theta wave, alpha, beta, like theta wave states, or
maybe
that's what the binaural beats do? But I don't know if it's the same thing.
It
or
might
not.
be similar. I'm not 100% sure. She knows it much better than I do. I'm kind of giving a rough idea of what I got from it. I still don't fully understand
it either. So
like this is like actually as you're listening to it, like the whole feedback loop thing. That's essentially what's happening. Is that
it like reads the activity that's going on in your.
Well, it's not so much that it reads the activity that's going on in your brain, but it does, like, there's this weird skipping noise that you hear when it's playing. And so, like, I don't know, like, it goes from sort of music that, I don't know if anyone's ever seen Samsara. Really good documentary, by the way. But kind of the music that would be in there, it's sort of almost as a mix of, like, really, really soft, like, kind of African tribal music, but also what kind of sounds like something you would listen to at a monastery if you were kind of meditating with the monks and that sort of thing.
Gregorian chant.
Not really Gregorian chant, but like
sorry.
No, it's like it's proper instruments. Like you hear like kind of like chimes in the background. It's like people are playing like not guitars, but
Have you ever been to a yoga class? Is it kind of like yoga music?
Kinda. It's kind of similar to yoga music.
But you like meditate through it, right?
Yeah, you meditate through it, and then some of it actually kind of sounds like something that would be like an epic adventure once in a while. Like there's points of it because she says like some people, you know, she works.
I listen to that shit on the reg.
Yeah, I love it.
All right.
But like some of the people she has do it, like, you know, everyone's a little bit different. Some people like to do art with it, like they'll draw or they'll read while they're listening to it, and for me, I like to just sit, listen, and just work on whatever I'm trying to work through. And what happens is as you're listening to the music, it has like these skips in it, and it sounds like a CD skipping. And apparently, like what that is it's helping kind of teach your brain to sort of calm down, to kind of help with the anxiety and allow you to, like, whatever thoughts you are having, get into them easier and push through them a little better and like think of them more mindfully. Essentially, it's like a way of practicing mindfulness better, if I'm not mistaken. And the way it works is it actually really does fatigue your brain. Because it's essentially like trying to teach you how to rewire your brain more easily.
Okay.
And so every time after I do it, I definitely, even though I essentially like take a nap when I do it, I wake up and I'm like, oh, I feel like I just trained for like 3 hours.
Yeah.
Like, the body doesn't feel like that, but you know, like that really sleepiness where your eyes get heavy and stuff. It's that sort of thing. So the rest of the day gets hard to kind of finish up everything I have to do because I'm just like, oh, I want to go to bed.
Oh yeah, dude. But hot yoga will do that to me sometimes.
Yeah,
I'm just like I'm fucking exhausted.
It's
from
a
the
similar
focus.
feeling to that actually. Yeah, and then.
Sometimes it energizes, but sometimes I'm like...
Well, like, I imagine it's kind of a similar feeling to, like, training. Like, if you're, like, exposing your body to, like, fear a lot. I mean, it's kind of, like, a similar vibe to that, yeah?
I mean, essentially what it is that you are training your brain to be able to, like, think different. Not just your amygdala, but kind of... It's essentially a way of speeding up that process of neuroplasticity and teaching your brain to actually think differently and implementing different thought patterns.
Stretching like the brain in a way.
Yeah, that's the best way to do it. And you're making it stronger. Yeah.
The new
the new neural pathways, like essentially being able to kind of make your neurons fire in different ways. And I do feel like it's made a huge difference because I've been doing it for like 3 months.
No, you've only been going for like
I started
10 weeks?
I started in August.
Yeah, but
September, October, so like 2 months.
I feel like you weren't. I mean, whatever. I have a personal opinion about that. I feel like you didn't really take it that seriously until.
Well, I mean, I didn't take it that seriously, but
mid-September almost. I feel like that's when you started actually wanting to go to therapy.
Well, no, because it started in August. So, actually, to rewind back, the whole reason I started going to therapy in the first place was I did go to a psychiatrist.
Okay.
And because it was I just didn't know what was going wrong. I couldn't figure out a solution to anything. Nothing was working. Been to therapy on and off since I was 9, essentially. And I decided I'll give medication a try and see how that works for me. And I feel like when I first went, and actually Danny was there with me for the first appointment, when I first got put on, it was working a little bit. So he initially put me on some anxiety medication and sleeping first. And it helped with the anxiety, but then I started just getting incredibly depressed. And then he put me on Adderall to kind of up that up, which I don't know if that was the best option.
Yeah, I mean,
to be
that's
totally
what it
honest.
feels like always. I mean, obviously meds work for a lot of people.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's what like you get this like scary thing where it's like, all right, now we're trying to like play this mix game where like mixology of like, all right, just a little bit of this, a little bit of that. And we're trying to like find a way to balance someone out, and
it is odd.
It seems like it's a nice like crutch to like get yourself through certain phases, but maybe it's like I don't know. I don't know because I've never had like experiences with these medications, but I've always had my reservations about taking any medication. Even asthma medication. When I was a little kid, I was like, I've just had like a little bit of dissonance with it, and I don't want to like I don't mean to pass any judgment against people that use it because like I think that they obviously help people, and some people can't get by without certain medications. But I remember just being like, I don't think I like need to be on my albuterol, like the little steroid inhaler that I had when I was a kid. I was like, I don't want to be on this for the rest of my life. And like for me, it worked where I got myself off of it. I weaned myself off.
Yeah.
I mean, that's not an option for everyone. I mean, because I do
and
know
it's obviously
people
not an option for everyone.
That, like,
but for me, it was like, you just have to be careful because medicine, like they want it to be like, here, just suck on this thing every time you get winded. And I'm like, well, okay, but I don't know that that's like the thing I want.
Yeah.
Totally.
And like, it worked for me to like not have to use it. But anyhow, so you just got to be careful because like it definitely helped me, but it also, I don't know, I haven't used it in 10, 12, 15 years maybe. So probably fine without it.
Yeah, I think you're pretty good, right? But I think medication has its place for certain
100%,
people.
100%.
And I think, to be totally honest, even though overall I didn't really enjoy the experience that much, I think it still kind of helped me open my eyes a little bit to what I needed to do and kind of what I found valuable and like the smaller things that would help make my life more valuable and have more meaning and allow me to kind of enjoy things a little more. Kind of made me realize the things I was really missing, which is like the deep connection. Like I spent so long secluding myself and forcing myself to be the introvert that I actually now kind of am not sure that I really am. Like I definitely have I'm definitely an introverted person to some degree. I like to recharge and just like have some alone time and that sort of thing, which I kind of think everyone does. Yeah. But I realized that like I do actually enjoy talking to people and I do actually enjoy giving some insight into things, but I've always been too nervous to say anything. And that's from a bit of trauma and that sort of thing. And kind of my voice was never really allowed to be heard. Like people would always shut me down all the time. But we'll get into that. But moving back to the medication, I was taking it for about a month or so. And like the first 2 weeks when I was like doing the Adderall, it on top of everything else, it was working. It was helping me feel better a little bit. It was helping me think a little clearer. But then I started realizing that it was starting to make all of the really negative feelings become a lot more intense and a lot less controllable. I was becoming very angry, very easy, like a lot more easily. I would just have like the craziest mood swings all the time. My appetite was totally gone. Basically, I ate like...
You lost like 15 pounds.
Yeah, over a month and a half.
I think you were on the meds for 2 months, right?
Yeah, about 2 months. I'm pretty sure
it was like 2 months, like 7-8 weeks is when you like...
Yeah, is when I was like, I'm done.
Was the breaking point, yeah.
Yeah, and basically did ate like once a day for about a month and a half, 2 months or so.
Yeah, you'd like... I mean, like you would like wake up and be like, I have to eat before I take my meds. Yeah. But like you could barely get food down in the morning and then you would take the meds and then you wouldn't eat the rest of the day and then it would come like 9-10 p.m. and you'd be like, oh, I'm like actually starving now. Yeah. But like you still couldn't eat that much. You lost so much weight. It was crazy how skinny you got. Yeah, and it's also crazy how weak you feel. Yeah, I mean, like all of a sudden you can't jump anymore. You got like injured kind of, didn't you?
Yeah, like everything was starting to ache. I couldn't, dude. The worst thing was like, especially training, it made my brain race so much that like I couldn't not think. So like even
Adderall?
Yeah, so even challenges that would be normal for me and like wouldn't really think about that much, I would spend like 10 minutes trying
just
to convince myself. Yeah,
hyperanalyzing,
getting more afraid of it, and I was just like, I've never done this before.
It's actually kind of interesting. You can I don't think you ever talked about it like on your Instagram, but like I know like once you finally got off the meds, you started like posting talking about like, oh, like I'm almost better, like, oh, like acting as if you had been injured. And I know that like I saw everyone, you know, I mean like whatever, but, like I would see comments every once in a while from people being like, did you get injured? Like I don't, like what are you coming back from? Like, and it was crazy because like you never, I mean, not that you had to or you need to, but like I know it was like for you felt like, I mean, you had lost 15 pounds, you had lost a lot of strength, you'd lost a lot of like your head game. It felt like to you probably like, I mean, you treated it almost like as an injury. You were set back. Like you hadn't been moving, you hadn't been gaining.
No, it literally felt like an injury.
But it's like crazy because you can like you can see how you talked about it like afterwards. You never like give a reason like why you were all of a sudden like, yeah, I'm like rebuilding now, like back at the gym, like trying to build my strength, like trying to gain weight. And I even I know like people like just from your Instagram captions would be like, did I miss something? Like, what are you coming back from? Like, I don't know what is kind of like.
Well, I think part of that is due to the fear. Like,
There's
I have
a huge
really
stigma
bad
when it
fear of
comes to
judgment.
and especially with with this kind of stuff, like with mental health these days, it's becoming less stigmatized, which is really good. And I think that's like why it's really cool and really awesome that you're sharing your story here, and that's like really brave, and also I know it's gonna help a lot of people.
Well, I want to
like your stories helped me, even just being witness to it, being here with you. And like, I draw on lots of people are coming out of the woodwork. Like, this is stuff that everyone deals with. I think like it's so relatable to have that, even though it's fucked up, like those feelings of just like, I woke up and I'm just like, damn it, I didn't want to wake up, like I just, those depressive, those suicidal thoughts, like.
And I think the real thing needs to be addressed. I think people keep trying to sugarcoat everything, and I don't think that's the way to actually solve the problem.
What do you mean by that?
I don't know. It just, especially, or maybe it's just Western culture or whatever. But I've like read some things on, I think, American culture specifically. And one of the things in general is even when we're having a bad day, it's kind of unacceptable for you to be sad. Like, if you're feeling bad, you can't go into work that morning and be like, I'm actually not having that good of a morning. It kind of sucks. And you're just expected to deal with whatever bullshit was given to you and then just walk in with a smile anyway and be like, oh, everything's great, which reinforces the idea that you can't actually talk to anybody, and it just makes you feel even worse because you haven't let anything out at all. Yeah, no,
it's definitely unacceptable in the workplace. Like, it's not tolerated. No one wants to hear that. It seems like, at least most workplaces, with most, I don't know, it's tough. It's tough because,
and also everyone wants to worry about who has the bigger problem, I feel like.
Oh no,
that's huge.
It's funny because like you literally brought it up, like the workplace. I literally went in this week on Wednesday, the day after you got like checked in, and I was just like, it was just a fucking shit day. Like, it was a bad day. I was in a bad mood. I was in a bad place, and it was like just bad. And I like came into work that morning, and like I sit in like a little four person like cube square or whatever, and like I walk in, and like the girl that I like say good morning to every morning is like, morning, and I'm like, morning. She's like, how are you? And I'm like, I'm doing shit today. And she's like, oh. And I was like, yeah, no, it's a shit morning, it's a shit day, it's a bad day. Like, all day I was just like in a bad mood. And like I know that like it's so relatable, because it's like, yeah, in general, like I have to go into work every morning and just be like, yeah, everything's fine, like it's a good day, everything's fine. Like, and if you're like at the water cooler, you can be like, oh, it's a Monday, like, oh, like projects are hard, management, like bullshit like that. But like genuinely, it was a fucking awful week for me, like it was a terrible week, and I didn't have any energy to like put up with anything on Wednesday. And I know like by the end of the day, I mean, like I'm very lucky that like the job I have, I don't have like a lot of like social obligations at my office, but like even in my little cube, like we talk, and like I just didn't share anything. Like all day I was like silent. I didn't like respond. I didn't turn around. I wasn't talking to anyone. And like by the end of the day, Lauren, like the girl that I work with, she just was like, what is up with you? And I was like, it's one of those things where it's like, I don't owe you an explanation on why like today is the worst day. It's not the worst day of my life, but it's like, why today is such a fucking shit day. Like, I don't owe you that explanation, but
and then she might have just been like,
I mean, she was concerned like,
Lauren, and then like, it's just tough when you're having that bad feeling. It's like, it's hard to like, like, it's hard to get in because you're just like, nothing seems to help.
No, and
it's like no matter, but obviously talking about it probably would help, but it's just like,
not with like, well, you
with
don't
Lauren,
like,
it's just like, fuck you, Lauren. I guess like,
well,
I don't know,
like,
fucking
and
Lauren
she
doesn't give a shit until I don't know.
she means well, and most people I think do mean well. Like if they can notice a difference in your attitude or whatever, I think most people mean well. But like it's just one of those things where it's like you're not allowed to just be in a bad
feeling,
mood.
Right? The
like,
part of the feeling is the distrust of others. Like you don't feel like there is love out there.
Well,
like,
I mean,
and like if you felt that way, then you probably wouldn't be feeling depressed or angry in the first place. If you felt like you could talk to people, it's like that's kind of part of it, is that you feel isolated, right?
Well, I mean, you feel isolated, but I think a part of that starts at childhood, because like even one of the most simple things, it makes a huge impact, is actually when you teach your kids and they fall over and hurt themselves and start crying, where it's like, no, don't cry. You shouldn't cry. Things shouldn't hurt. You shouldn't feel bad. It should be. No, you fell, it hurts, you have to deal with it. It's going to suck a little bit, but we'll be here to help you deal with it.
Mm-hmm.
And the whole thing that starts to happen is that everyone knows that everybody suffers in some way. Like nobody nobody is excused from it. Everyone goes through hard stuff, no matter where you are, no matter what class you are, no matter your race, religion, I don't care.
Yeah.
Creed, sex, whatever. Like, you're going to go through something, you're going to suffer, and you're going to have to deal with it.
Yeah.
And for some reason, we allow ourselves to think that if you're suffering, you're supposed to keep it to yourself and not allow the world to see. Whereas, like, if you actually let it out and everybody can relate to a negative emotion a little bit more and like feel like, oh, you feel sad too for this reason. Okay, then I'll talk about what's making me feel sad. Because one of the things I realize is as I've been becoming more open with it, people are becoming more open with me as I say more things, and I'm like, oh, okay, yeah, we are all going through something. And it lets you have a little bit more humility, I think. It allows you to be like, okay, cool. If they can solve their problem, I can solve mine. Or if they can work with it, I can work with mine. Like that sort of thing. And
I think there's a difference. Like, I don't mean to.
No, you're fine.
But I do feel like there's a difference because, like, something like that I feel is like done equally. Like, I'm glad that I think it's great that like people can talk about like, you know, their issues and their problems, and it's not like as stigmatized, but like something I think that a lot of people do is like wallow, and they act like wallowing or just being like not wanting to help themselves is the same thing as like I'm just venting, or I'm just like and I don't like that mentality where it's like I'm all for sharing. I'm all for like seeking help and like, and you know, reaching out to others and, you know, seeking out people who can help you and not keeping it bottled up. But I also like think that there's something to just like, okay, for instance, like me on Wednesday at work, like I didn't want people to like the way I would have preferred it would have just been like, I'm just not in a good mood. Like, just leave me alone today. And I feel like that's something that I try and do for like my friends. Like you ask, like, you're like, hey, like, what's up? Like if like something's bothering someone and you're like, can you tell me what's wrong? And they're like, no, you just give them the space to like feel their emotion. You don't need to like,
pride,
you know what I mean?
pride.
Like, well, you can't.
Some people want to like bandage it and like be like, all right, let me just logic this one out for you. You don't need to feel bad because your life's pretty good.
Yeah.
There you go. Be in a good mood now. Peace. Yeah. Like people like, yeah, I know what you mean. Like people don't necessarily have the space to really be there for you or show up and like, and because everyone has their own shit and stuff. And it's like, they may not feel comfortable sharing. I think that's like part of the hugest thing too, is like, you know, you want to be that person with your shit together. You want to seem that way, and like, especially if you see someone with, you touched on it earlier. It's just like you delegitimize your own pain when you see someone going through worse than what you're going through, or perceptively what you think might be worse, and so then you'll feel like, all right, well, I have no ground to stand on, like, you know, and partially like that's. I don't know. Like partially like you should maybe draw inspiration like that from someone like going through something harder, but also it's like unhealthy, I think, to like not recognize and see your pain as the same.
Yeah. I mean, there's a balance.
Obviously, like, yeah, I don't know.
I think it's like not that you're supposed to, but there is realizing that some people maybe have had some harder situations or specific events, but that doesn't invalidate whatever you're feeling with your trauma or your negative situation.
Well, and likely, like, you're not giving yourself enough credit. Like, I noticed that with myself, that was a problem. Like, I would see, you know, you and other friends, and just throughout my life, even just being like, damn, like, I got it pretty good. And like, it honestly had worked for me in a lot of situations, like feeling like inspired by that instead of, you know, I'm like, oh, that person's facing something, you know, more intense. And so I can, it inspires me just without even having to say much. But it also has backfired in some ways where I've just like not worked through my emotions in some ways because I'm like,
I shouldn't feel
tough it out, you know, like, and just like not give myself space to also express and share my own pain with these people.
I mean, that's the biggest mistake I've made over the last like near decade.
Yeah.
Was like, I realized like a lot of my friends, I guess especially maybe just in East Coasting too, a lot of my friends had hard lives. You know, they had like really shitty parents and dealt with like kind of like the worst people. And no matter what I was going through, you know, I was going through the death of a best friend. I was dealing with my niece being taken away from me, just drama in the household constantly every single day. But I would see my friend whose like father passed away, or my friend who was having parents that were going through a divorce, or, you know, they weren't getting attention that they needed. And I would just delegitimize my problems and were to let them deal with it. Like, for instance, my best friend growing up, his parents didn't really care for him growing up at all. And even though I was going through my shit, because he was around me all the time, and because I like knew what was going on in his life, I didn't allow myself to believe that any of my problems were as valuable at all. So I pushed them down, ignored them, and repressed them. And they're starting to surface now.
Yeah. Watch out.
Yeah.
They come back.
They do come back. They come back hard.
Stuff them down. No matter the deeper you stuff, the more toxic it's gonna like
for real
come
like,
out. You know,
it just festers in there. It's like it's kind of like a fine bottle of wine. The longer it sits in there, the stronger it gets.
Yeah. Or wine gets better though. So
that's maybe not like the best example.
It's not the best
old
example.
Wine is like prime. I'd say it's best.
But I know what you mean. It's more
prime emotion. I'll tell you that. That shit comes out and you're like,
that aroma.
It hits you.
Jesus.
Oh, Lord.
No, that's huge, man. Yeah, I think that. I don't know. I just think that's like something that's definitely something I've made the mistake of doing as well.
Yeah, and I've noticed
it's like it's huge. It's part of our generation. Like part of
social
just
media.
like the social media and the internet and stuff is just like you reckon like there's
You're
even
so
just
aware.
this baseline layer of just like, oh fuck, like, well, there's children starving in parts of Africa and there's people being like genocided over here, and like just like the fact that you live in the States, you can convince yourself that you don't deserve to like feel pain. You're like, well, got it real good.
I mean, there's still places here though that randomly you're getting blasted by a shotgun.
Well,
for no reason.
Like you look at Louisiana, like hurricane survivor victims and all these things. Like there's any places that you can look. There's so much bad news out there to compare your life to that it makes you feel.
I think it's also, like the
The same
comparative
feeling.
nature that we're talking about in general is like with the internet, you are so capable of seeing everything worse than how you have it and everything better than you have it as well. So you are kind of stuck in this perpetual like, well, I don't have everything, but I also have everything. You know what I mean? It's kind of like, well, what am I complaining about? But also like, it could be better. It's a very like, I don't know. Like, the reason like the internet I think is kind of fucked up is because like genuinely, you can literally see everything worse. Like you can look and see like how perfect you have it and equally how shit you have it. Like you can look at both extremes. Like, yeah, like it's just crazy. And like that comparative nature is not healthy. And I think it's in all of us. We all have an ego and like we all, I think in general, it's part of the human condition to struggle with your ego. And so the comparative nature that you have with like the world, with others, your peers is only, exemplified when you have access to more information and access to more like data about everyone else. It's just like, it really can create a trap where you simultaneously, that's just everything we've been saying. Like you simultaneously feel not enough and also like you have too much.
Yeah.
That's a hard thing to grapple with, especially if you have other things to grapple with. Like someone, I think a lot of the kids that are coming up now, there's a lot of talk about like anxiety and depression and it's like these kids that grew up with the internet that are like in high school right now and middle school and stuff. They're so informed. They're so much more informed than we were in high school. Like they know so much, or they have not every single kid, but like if you care, you can read about everything. Like on, in your pocket is like all of the information of the world. and like a lot of kids do it. Like you're curious at that age and you have a lot of free time. Like of course you're like reading about all of the worst and the best things in the world. Like no wonder you're so young. Like this isn't exactly what we're talking about, but like it's just like it's an interesting like place we're coming to where there's like this inundation of too much knowledge and too much like comparison and the ability to really like know and understand a lot at a young age. And I think that it's wonderful. It probably allows for a lot of like growth and empathy, but it also can like create a lot of like self-hatred and self-loathing and like
yeah, no doubt.
Yeah,
it's out there.
It's like way,
and especially because like Instagram and like that's just for an example. Like just as much as we want to like see, one person that's been really inspiring to me like, as of late, and on this area, and if I think I told you about Tyson Fury, the boxer. Yeah, like he's come out very very openly about his depression and suicidal thoughts, and like having dealt with. I can't remember exactly what he's diagnosed with or whatever, but just he's had like mental health problems, and like it's nice to see like because none of people escape that. Like even The Rock fucking Dwayne Johnson, you know? Like it's not something that anyone escapes, you know? And that's like important to see that, because part of the reason why The Rock is so inspiring, why he got to that level, is because people do like to feed off of that positive energy. And like, even though it's kind of an illusion in some ways that he's like, oh, I fucking just constantly crush it. I'm up at 4 a.m. crushing it till 4 a.m. the next day, you know, just like I just 24/7 crush fest. And like, but like
Crush fest.
but you know, and like for him, it's probably, it's huge, you know, for him to actually have to be able to come out about those feelings, because everyone looks to him as being like this positive influence.
Yeah.
And, you know, for anyone to not to feel like they have, it's the same thing, you know, it's just like, it's really cool that people are starting to come out about it. And I don't know, just like people like you, it's just like, all right, The Rock even deals with this shit. Like he's, you know, if there's another person that you can imagine that has everything, right? You're like, oh, if you're going to look to The Rock, he's the one to do that. You're like, you would look at and be like, he's the opposite end of starving, like with nothing.
Yeah.
He's got millions of dollars in movies. He seems like he's living the
He
dream.
literally has a full gym that follows him around in a truck.
No way.
Yeah.
Is that really a fact about The Rock?
Yeah.
Do you guys want to know like a cool fact about The Rock? Sorry.
Please
Also, I don't
enlighten
think that
us.
we finished Nick's like
No,
full
we didn't
story,
even
so
get-
we should like
we got-
loop back to that.
we got
But
time.
I want to do an interlude on a cool fact about The Rock.
Yeah.
So
I mean, he's the man, honestly.
he is dope, and he is one of my favorite humans, and I will tell you why.
You know, my brother hung
he
out
is
with him
an
once.
he's an avid baker, which is wonderful. Love that fact about him. If anyone listening,
Yeah,
you two, do you know Great British Bake Off? Do you know Great British Bake Off?
I've heard many good things. I've never actually sat down
You
to
gotta
watch
watch
it.
The Rock, Dwayne The Rock Johnson, is a huge Great British Bake Off fan, and he has a dream of being on Great British Bake Off, and I've never felt more connected to a large man before. Like I've never felt so like symbiotic. What's the word? Like I've never felt like we are each
You're
other.
just kindred spirits.
Like we are together in this.
Yeah.
That like all I've ever wanted is to be on Great British Bake Off, and
With
like,
The Rock.
and also he wants to be on Great British Bake Off.
Yeah, humans are
Too
just
bad
so
I'm
much
not
more
British.
complex than like we ever give them ourselves credit for, right?
And he's like
it's
huge.
like The Rock's fucking into cooking and baking and shit.
He's into
and like
baking.
you
It's
said,
not
it's
the
like
same.
people want to box you in. You're like, oh, I guess I'm an introvert. But you're not necessarily. You have extrovert qualities. Like
Well,
a lot of people have.
Just because you're an introvert doesn't mean you don't like socializing too. I mean, like,
Well, yeah, and it's just
Yeah, that's
it's
true.
That's all I'm saying is like it's just people like kind of want to always dichotomize things, and
Yeah,
then it's just
totally.
not.
They always want to cause some sort of separation.
well, yeah,
Yeah.
like black and white is easier to understand than shades of gray. Like that's just
Yeah.
it's easier. Like, and
Yeah.
It's true.
you know,
Yeah,
who
it's
wants
just-
to understand nuance? It's like
Yeah.
hard. You know.
Yeah. Ugh,
I understand that.
Anyway, you should probably finish your story, Nick.
Where was I last? Actually, it was. I
Um,
remember I
You
was
were talking
talking
about, like, you
the
had,
medication.
like,
talking
just
about
finished
you
the
were
meds.
finishing. You were coming out.
Yeah, that
well,
was how
you
I
hadn't
got
really.
with
You
my
talked about
therapist
how bad
anyway.
the meds were, and we don't really know exactly how you ended and like
Yeah.
what
Yeah.
what caused the change for you to want to come off the meds when you decided like this is it for me.
Yeah.
Right. So basically, I felt my emotions really, really getting the better of me, and my control over them was basically non-existent. Anger was insane, punching holes in my wall, breaking shit for like no real reason. Like stupid ass things would happen. It's like, oh, I spilled water, I'm gonna freaking throw the glass against the wall.
Yeah.
And it got to the point where literally I took much more than I was supposed to on my sleeping pills in an effort to just sleep myself away. And after I did that, I was like, I've never tried to do this before.
Yeah.
This is not good for me. And basically, like with the Adderall, once I finished that last bottle, I was like, you know what? I'm not going to my psychiatrist. I'm not getting a refill. And I just made myself cut off completely cold turkey. And I was on it long enough. 2 months doesn't sound that long, but apparently to my knowledge, and I would say look this up, take it with a grain of salt. Apparently within 3 days of taking those kind of medications, your brain develops an addiction for it.
Yeah.
It's a dependency, not
dependency.
an addiction.
Okay.
There is a difference.
Yeah,
between
anytime
that.
you're fucking with the chemicals in your body, it's like your body is adaptive as fuck. So it's
It'll
gonna be like,
produce
oh, we got
less.
this coming in. All right, well, turn this
Yeah.
off.
You
Like,
don't need this. Yeah, if
Yeah.
they're getting it from another source, they'll turn off. Like if you get, I mean, like it's the reason. Like if you were to take ecstasy, like your brain, you get an excess of the dopamine, and therefore the next day your brain
Wants it.
won't produce as much
Yeah.
Yeah.
dopamine, and that's why a lot of people are like, yeah, you're depressed after you take ecstasy. It's because your brain notices the excess of the dopamine and then doesn't
and it
produce as
shuts
much
down
the
all
next
those
day, and that's why
serotonin
it takes
receptors or
some
dopamine
time.
receptors.
Yeah, exactly. Serotonin, dopamine, I think it's all the same.
It all breaks down into this to dopamine or something, or so I don't remember how. I'm not
I don't
a
know all
chemist.
of them. I'm
I
definitely
need
not
to
good at
get
the
my
brain.
chemistry going.
Fair enough. But yeah, it was like I could feel myself with the Adderall too. It was like I had to take it twice a day. So I would take it in the morning when I kind of first woke up, and then by noonish, I would feel it. I would feel the come down basically, and it was no longer like, okay, I should re-up because it says I should. It was like I need more. It's literally all I felt like all the time, and it got to the point where I was double dosing every morning. So I was taking like 40 milligrams in the morning, probably about 30 midday.
Yeah.
Even though I was supposed to do like 20 and 20, just because I felt like I needed more.
What is
and
that
more.
like driving force? Like when you decide to go off like the prescribed medication, is it just it's an overwhelming?
You just don't want to feel like shit.
So once you have that addiction, you're just like, all right, I need it.
Yeah, like
Your body's like something with someone like you who has high metabolism probably is just like you're just burning through like every dosage, and you're just like
yeah,
and
because like you would have the energy and everything, and then you would feel the Adderall coming off, and then you would basically feel super exhausted and then really sad, and then you're just like, I need to feel good again. I need to feel good again, and then you take it again. You're like, okay, I feel better now, but it just feels really artificial.
Yeah,
and then when I decided to cut myself off, I went through withdrawals. I went like a real withdrawal. And actually, you were around for that. You were there for the day after. I think I was 2 days in when I saw you at the gym. And I remember stopping taking it, and then I went to bed that night. Woke up the next day. No, the day that I didn't take it in the morning, and I already felt it start to affect me. So I remember trying to go to work, and then I was just sitting in the parking lot in my car and just literally freaking out, crying and screaming by myself in my car, and like couldn't go into work. Like I was too scared to go in. I can't even really explain what that feeling was like. And I had to call my friend and tell him like, I don't know what's going on. And he was like, where are you? Are you okay? I'll come to you. I was like, no, I want to come to you. And so I went to his house and just like hung out, and I started feeling a little weird. Like reality was kind of starting to disconnect. And then I had actually slept over Danny's that night. And then when I woke up the next morning is like when it really hit me heavy. I woke up that morning and felt kind of like I was in a lucid dream. According to my therapist, I was in a state of dissociation. So reality didn't feel real exactly, almost like an outer body experience. And when I woke up that morning, I felt not even anxious, but the most real fear that I think I've ever felt. Like it actually felt like someone was out to kill me. Yeah. And I just woke up feeling like that, and it wouldn't go away. And my body was insanely weak. I tried getting out of bed, and I felt like I had like an 80-pound weight vest on. Jesus. And I couldn't like stand up straight. I couldn't think straight at all. I didn't know what was going on. I could barely even really see right.
And this is all just because of the chemical
dependency
imbalance that exists now, because I threw
everything
out.
off.
So your nervous system is on like
shutdown,
fight panic mode, basically.
Yeah.
Where it's like like red alert, like whatever, like mayday. So you're like full of fear. You're full of if everything feels weak and you're exhausted.
Yeah, like
Jesus. I mean, it sounds horrible.
Forget even trying to do parkour. Like I literally I was walking down the stairs, and I had to. It took me probably about a minute and a half to get down the stairs.
At my house?
At your house. And I had to hold onto the railing with both hands and still felt like I was going to fall down.
Oh my God.
And that 97-year-old man.
Basically,
life.
I was like, oh my God. Like all of a sudden I just feel like an old man. What happened to me? And like it was just achy, and I was like so scared, and I couldn't like really talk to anybody. And people would like ask me questions, and I didn't know how to. I was like, I remember talking to my mom that morning actually, and she was like, "What's going on?" And I was like, "I'm not totally like sure right now. I'm fucking freaking out." And then it would start like the craziest mood swings I've ever experienced in my life. Like I would be home trying to like get things done as much as possible, and I would feel fine for like 15 minutes, and then out of nowhere I would be in a crying fit on my bed, like holding on to everything and not knowing what to do. And by crying fit, I mean literally hysterical, eyes bawling, snotty, whatever, just like that screaming, crying crap because you don't know what is going on.
And you feel like that's because it was. I mean, well, why do you feel like that? Like, I don't know. Just like, what's your experience? I don't know, because I just feel like it's that's what's interesting. And some part of it is just,
there's already anxiety in me.
do you, like, what's the yeah okay.
So I think it was like an extremely heightened anxiety. So that like the highest level of anxiety I ever had before I was taking the medication, it was like tenfold when I came off.
Yeah.
And it was literally the most. I can't even explain what kind of suffering it was, and it literally gave me a little bit of perspective on drug addicts, and I respect them a lot more for trying to get off of what they're getting off of. It sucks they got into it in the first place, but it's what some of them are going through, like people who are doing heroin or meth or something. Like, it's way worse than the experience I had, and I was barely able to handle that.
Yeah,
and I was like, Jesus Christ, how do people get through this? And the first 3 days was the hardest.
How do people? I mean, how did you get through this? Like,
you have to deal with it sucking, basically.
Yeah.
Like, you have to basically feel like, okay, I kind of feel like I'm going to die through this, but I'm going to accept that and just keep dealing with it. It's literally the best way I can put it is, if I'm going to put it in somewhere physical, it's kind of like imagine being tortured and you don't have a choice because you're tied down. And it's like, well, I'm going to have to deal with it because I'm in it and I can't do anything about it.
When did it start to turn into like more positive? Like, or did what would help a lot? Obviously, like, you're not still in that state, so like,
no, thankfully.
Just like,
well, one of the
thank
things
God, but like,
that did help was actually being around people. Because when I got alone is when everything started getting very, very scary. Because at least when I was around like my close friends and stuff, I felt a little bit kind of protected. So the anxiety stuff wasn't that bad, but all the physical stuff was still there, and that was hard. Like, by day 2, I was starting to get this weird feeling that, you know, when you get like nervous and you start getting that heat in your chest and you kind of get like that itchy hot, it would feel like that, but then it would feel like my skin was in an ice bath at the same time.
It's like sick.
And I couldn't escape
like a fever, basically. Like, fever
I just
dream.
could not escape it. And I was like,
what was the timing on you going to the therapist?
I started talking to her by
Was it like day
the
one?
second.
Or
I think it was
day.
I think it was day 1 that I started talking to her.
Like your day 1 off of the meds. So the therapist you see now.
Yeah.
You saw her day 1, and she
I didn't
helped
see
you.
her.
You called her.
I
That's
had
right.
called
You
her
had
on
a
the
talk
phone,
with
and
her.
that's how she explained everything to me, and it made me feel a little bit better. But it was still just hard because, again, like I said, reality was so weird. I felt completely out of touch with reality. Training was a no-go. She even said to me, she's like, especially for the first week or 2, don't do any parkour. Except she's like, you can maybe go to the gym or do stuff like really ground level. But she was like, you have like you have no sense of where you are or of anything. And I could feel it. Like, I couldn't tell how far away things were. I had no depth perception. Heights just like looked really weird in general. I was way, way too weak. I had no power for anything, no endurance, anything. I had complete loss of control over my nervous system. Like, if I tried to land on something, it wouldn't work. Like, I couldn't be like, oh, pull your arms back or landing the balls of your feet. It was, my body's going to do the thing it wants to do no matter what.
Yeah.
And I had to just sit and just be like, cool, I'm just going to kind of watch people because I literally can't do anything. And that's actually when like the Apex International was going on, and I was like, I got to get out of my house because I can't just sit alone anymore. And that's when I found you, and I just had to, even though I felt really nervous and afraid and everything, I had to be in the gym because it was the only place I could find some kind of comfort. Especially because like all friends from around the world were there, so that it definitely helped. But like, I remember Renee, and like I still felt nervous about telling anybody really anything. I mean, I told you, I told like Charlie and stuff. I think I told Hendo, I told a couple of people, but there were still people I didn't feel comfortable like saying the full thing to. I remember Renee asking me, he's like, oh, why aren't you competing today? And I was just like, oh, just tired, not feeling in the mood or anything like that. And in reality, it was like, yeah, I kind of feel like I'm dying right now. Like, to be totally honest. And so the first 3 days was definitely the hardest. The first 3 days, you had all the physical stuff and just pure dissociation where reality just felt fake. It almost felt like I was in the mind of like a 6-year-old a little bit.
Weird.
That's like the best way I can think of it. Like, I don't know how else to put it. But then, thankfully, after like that 3-day period, that real heavy anxiety wore away. But I still just felt weird and kind of foggy. And I still couldn't really like actually train or really do anything super physical for another 3 weeks or so.
And you started seeing a therapist after this, or like,
yeah, I started.
What's been?
I started seeing her, I think, It's like somewhere between 5 and 8 days. I can't remember exactly.
And it seems like this has been way more helpful,
it's been more helpful for
than
me
the drug approach was for you.
Yeah, I mean, it might work for some
medicine,
people, but like I don't think it was necessarily.
Was there anything
for me.
redeemable about the drugs? Like,
I think it helped me discover the things that I wasn't allowing myself to enjoy or allowing myself to have.
I think it's something, I mean, just from your experience with the drugs, I think that perhaps the psychiatrist you saw didn't like take a more holistic approach. Like, I don't know if, I mean, I don't understand the psychiatric profession, so I don't know if it's like, if what he did was like standard operating procedure, but it just seems like, because I was there that day when you went in and you were kind of like, you had talked about how as a whole you described your situation, I would say pretty well, like, I mean, to the best of your abilities. And it wasn't like he asked like, oh, like, have you seen a therapist, or like, have you, like, what have you tried, like you know, it was more just like, he was like, okay, like, these are the, like,
here, all right, we're doing this,
and it was like, these are like the things I feel I can diagnose you with, or the things you seem to be confident in to diagnose yourself, like you've been diagnosed, but like it did seem kind of just like, okay, you're here and this is what I feel like is wrong, and so let me give you the drugs that will help. And I guess, like, I really don't know enough about it, but it just seems like
you might have
there
to.
should have been a little bit more pre-work before just like getting put on drugs.
That's what I feel like too, and especially with what he put me on.
But I don't know if that was like his fault or your fault.
It seems like,
I don't
regardless, if you're having these things, like, it might be a good idea to seek more than one kind of help.
And also,
because like obviously for you, the first place you looked, like you did what you should do, is what, you know, the one thing that I think we could all agree on is like you sought help, which is like, that's what you have to do. And you're not going to necessarily find it like wherever you go. It's not going to be like what works for you potentially. Yeah. And like, obviously for you, it helped a little, but it also did some more damage. And like, but it, you know, surviving that, like, probably made it easier in some ways to like, all right, I'm ready for the next thing. I'm going to keep looking for help. Yeah. And I don't know, but then you found more help.
Yeah. I found that, because when I started going to the psychologist, it started making more sense, and she explained everything a lot better. And I think already, because of the approach I have taken to it for so long, which has always been kind of work on myself, don't try and make it so external. I think I relate to that sort of working better, so it works better for me personally. And then also, again, like, I don't know, I'm not a psychiatrist, I'm not a professional, but it did feel weird that the first thing that he put me on for depression was Adderall, because I looked into it a little bit, and apparently that's something you're supposed to do as like a last resort when you've tried everything else. And I did tell him, I was like, I've never had medication before, so I don't know. And that was the very, very first thing he gave me.
Yeah, not everyone's, you know, like you said, you gotta, like, it's tough because not everyone's gonna be the best at their job. Yeah. You know, like you went to the psychiatrist that was there and like that you thought could help you. Yeah. But
I also waited for that appointment for like 6 months.
Well, but you had
Jesus Christ, you know,
but that was
like,
the shortest wait time you could find.
Yeah.
That's the thing though, is like you couldn't, like, literally couldn't make an appointment, because I was I mean, like, you couldn't make an appointment.
That's so wild. Yeah. Jesus.
Yeah. I called like about 14, 15 different psychiatrists and couldn't get into any of them.
The beginning of 2018, you were like, I'm looking for help. Like, because it was, but anyway, like,
it's kind of fucked
up. It was like in January and February, you were calling around frantically, and like so many places were like, no, we're not accepting any patients. No, we can't help you. No. And most of them were like, I don't know, 8, 10, a year. And then his office was like 6 months out. And so you just made that appointment. Like, it's crazy that like,
well, 6 months I had no idea it was so hard to get into an office to begin with. Jesus Christ.
Yeah, like I probably called for about 3-4 days straight.
That was like honestly the thing that shocked me the most. Like when you were going through that, it was like baffling to me that was like how it works.
I mean, it's kind of not surprising, even though I hate, you know, it's fucked up, but it's similar to like even just joint. Like if you have something wrong with your leg. Yeah. You know, like when I got my meniscus removed, it was like, all right, you tore your meniscus. All right, in 3 months, we'll do your surgery. I'm like, what am I supposed to do for 3 months? They're like, yeah, just walk around with a limp. I'm like,
okay.
I feel like that's not good.
Is there like not another person around
Like,
you?
yeah, no, I mean,
I guess
sorry,
like,
bro. Like,
Yeah.
if
To
you were
be
a celebrity,
fair-
if you had like more money or some shit, maybe we could help you. But
I guess like to be fair,
I mean,
we didn't know.
it's just tough.
You didn't know.
You don't know, right? You just
And-
don't know.
But like you could have checked into God, what was the name of it? Like the hospital, like you just like what you just came in, like had I known or you known that would have been an option, that honestly is probably something that could have happened way earlier this year, like way back in the beginning of the year when you were kind of like first like I need to get this under control. I really need to like start working on this and like fix this being you. And like that's when you were first like I need to find like a psychiatrist. I think a psychiatrist is what I need. And like I feel like if we had known or if you had known or if anyone you'd talked to had like suggested that or reassured you that would have been a good option.
Yeah.
Frankly, that would have probably been a
lot
better
better
thing
for
to
me.
do if you had done it way at the beginning of the year.
Yeah, no,
Like,
honestly, even though it was like kind of rough, I do really wish I would have done it a long time ago. Because I think it's given me the most insight out of anything I've done so far. Honestly,
yeah, let's get into it. Actually, like,
Yeah.
what was that experience like?
so
yeah, you want to talk
So, yeah,
about
I'm at
there?
at
Go
my
on,
therapist. What was that?
Sorry, go on.
I go to my therapist on Tuesday. Tell her how I'm feeling. That basically like, yeah, nothing is interesting to me. Like, I don't want to do anything. I don't enjoy anything. Life's just not fun or interesting. Like, there's no will for anything. And I was like, I kind of just want to sleep and not wake up. And she was like, are you suicidal? And I was like, I don't necessarily want to say suicidal. Like, I don't want to go and just off myself. But if I went to sleep and didn't wake up, I wouldn't be mad. And basically she was like, do you trust yourself? Like, do you trust you with yourself? And honestly, I was like, I don't know, not really. And she said, okay, I have a suggestion. I think you should maybe go to a hospital for a few days and just feel it out, like try it out. I forgot exactly what she said, and I forgot exactly how she did it. And I'm not mad at her at all, like whatsoever. I'm kind of grateful. That the way she kind of handled it. I don't remember how we got exactly
But
to
she's
me.
following like kind of a certain like
There's a procedure
protocol
to
for
it,
for
yeah.
like,
Yeah.
all right, if I get these answers, like,
Yeah,
I know like what needs to be done, and like,
yeah, definitely. Like, and she definitely used her skills to her advantage, but she did the right thing and she did what was helpful, and it wasn't out of anything negative. It was all purely out of help. Like, I definitely really trust her. And basically I somehow ended up at the point where I think I did agree, but I don't remember exactly saying like, yeah, let's do it.
Yeah.
But basically she, after I guess quote unquote agreed, but I do want to say agreed because I did agree eventually.
Yeah.
She was like, okay, cool. So you can't drive yourself there. You have to wait here until someone can escort you. And you can't leave. If you leave, I'm going to have to call somebody. And I was like, oh, shit, it got real.
Damn.
I was like, damn, okay. And then, so that's when we got in touch with you, actually. Yeah. And so for those of you that don't know, Brandon's actually the one who took me into the hospital and everything.
The only people
Nobody
that know
knows.
that is Brandon and I and you. So
actually, a couple people know.
I will fair enough.
Yeah.
Oh shit.
There's a couple people that I've talked to a couple of people already.
I'm so sorry.
Like Max and Christine and stuff.
Okay, anyway, all right.
But yeah, so yeah, I was talking to her, and we call Brandon. He starts making his way toward me, and then basically I hung out in her office for like another hour and a half or so, and we did the feedback loop and everything again. And then the whole weirdest thing about it was there was a point where I was like, hey, I got to use the bathroom. And then she kind of like looked at me and smiled, and I already knew what she was going to say. And she was like, so, and I was like, yeah, I'm not gonna be able to go by myself, can I? And she was like, no. And I was like, cool. She's like, just give me a minute. And then so she did what she had to do. And then such a weird feeling being like 25 and having like an older woman just like walk you to the bathroom. Like, like it's like your mom walking you to the bathroom when you're 5 and she can't go into the bathroom with you because it's the men's room.
Yeah.
And I was like, yeah, this feels so weird right now.
Yeah, no doubt.
And then, I sat in the room, and then you showed up and we had to talk with her and everything, and then drive over to the hospital, and then I go in, fill out the paperwork and what have you, and they sat me down in a small room with one of the counselors there. And she evaluated me, asked me a bunch of questions, are you suicidal, so on and so forth. And I was like, passively, I think so, yeah. And long story short, at the end of it, she was like, okay, so you can either go home or you can stay and give it a go. It's up to you.
They
And
didn't
then-
deem you an immediate threat
Yeah,
to yourself or anyone else.
Yeah, exactly. And so I was like, I was sitting there going back and forth, and I probably sat there quietly for like 2-3 minutes just thinking. And I was like, I looked at her and just said, honestly, I want to go home because I just feels more like comfortable, but something is telling me that I should just do it. And I asked her, I was like, just in your opinion, because I can't really honestly think that straight. I'm like, do you think I should or shouldn't? She's like, honestly, I would say to do it. And I like sat there probably about 10 seconds and just thought and was like, I had this feeling. It's like that feeling that you get when you look at a really scary challenge, honestly. And like it's making you shit a brick, but you're like, I don't know, it feels right though. And
you're like, I can fit. This is the right challenge for me.
Yeah. And so I was like,
I'm scared of it for the right reasons.
Yeah, I'm scared
because
for the
I know
right
that like
reason.
on the other side of this challenge is a
gonna
better
be
me.
Yeah.
Glory.
It's glory. I wouldn't say glory. I don't feel glorious
And hot
yet.
chicks and money stacks.
I have not done any of those things.
Oh, come on. You got
Ouch.
hot chick. I had plural chicks.
Yeah, I'll
That's
give the one chick.
yeah. We got hot chick and money, no money, but whatever.
But yeah, so then I was like, okay, let's do it. And then, I signed all the paperwork. And once I signed all the paperwork, a little part of me was like, oh, fuck, I actually committed to this. And so, yeah, that's when I said bye to you. And then,
Bye, buddy.
bye, buddy. Cool.
Bye, son.
I can really call you dad now. But yeah, so then, they take me into the unit and everything. And then at that point, I really realized what I was in. Because at that point, I did not walk around alone. And I could not get through any doors without anybody letting me through. Like they had all like the key cards for everything.
Yeah,
and
yeah,
all
yeah.
the doors were like locked down. And I couldn't open them.
Yeah.
And I was like, damn, this is like a real feeling. Okay. And so, yeah, I get to the unit, start talking to the other counselor in there and everything. And, there's one point where she's like, all right, so you can't have any strings in your clothes. You can't have any shoelaces for, because we don't want you hurting yourself or anybody else.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, damn. And so they wanted to cut the strings off my pants. And I was like, no, I don't really want to do that. And she's like, well, we have scrubs. And I was like, yeah, that works, I guess. I gave him my shoes because I was like, I like being barefoot. I'll be barefoot for whatever amount of days.
Yeah.
And they did tell me in the beginning that, it's the initial hold is 72 hours. But if you find that you need to be here longer, then we're going to hold you.
Yeah.
And I was like, all right, well, I hope it's just a 72 then, because I don't know if I can do that for that long.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, basically the hardest thing about it, or the weirdest thing was, you're so connected to the world now with the internet and everything, going back to that. And then all of a sudden you have nothing. You don't have your phone. You don't have any contact with really anybody except for like the phone they have in there. But you have to know the numbers. You have to have your patient number, or else they can't even tell anybody if you're there.
Yeah.
Like my mother called and she didn't have my patient number, so they couldn't tell her even if I was there or not. And like you feel a little bit, and granted, this is from an ignorant perspective. I haven't been to any sort of prison, but it felt a little bit like you're kind of in a super minimum security prison. Like everyone's like really, really nice, but they're still like not going to let you do shit.
Yeah.
And so, I don't know, like I was having just weird mixed feelings. I felt kind of positive, but also really, really scared at the same time. And after they processed me, which took like 2-3 hours, something like that, finally you start trying to go to bed. And then it hits me what I just did. And I'm just laying in bed, and, the room has really nothing in it. There's 2 beds in the room. I can't close my door because they need to keep checking on me all the time. The windows don't open or anything. I go to one of the drawers.
Drawers are fake.
The drawers are fake. Yeah, I pull on the drawer and it's like,
you can't be trusted with wood.
yeah, dude, like it wobbled a little bit, so I thought like it would open. And I'm sitting there like trying to pull it for probably like a minute, and I'm like, and it's jiggling. I'm like,
what is that experience
stuck?
like? I guess like what do you like? What is that like now coming out the other side of it and stuff? Like, what is that experience like you think done for you in some ways? Like being like monitored like that in a way where you're sort of like not trusted to be with yourself. It sounds like, right?
Yeah.
That's like
No,
kind
you're
of the
definitely
idea.
not trusted to be with
That's
yourself
like
at
that's
all.
the whole idea, right?
Yeah.
But like,
it lets
like,
me.
do you understand like why that's like how they approach it, and like what do you feel like that gives? What do you think that gives like to the people that are in the hospital, like receiving treatment?
I think it allows you to go through the thing you have to go through the horrible thoughts and through the sadness and everything without any real danger in your face. Because I think part of it is you have to deal with what you are feeling. So if you're having really suicidal thoughts and that sort of thing, you have to feel them and you have to sulk in them a little bit. Yeah. But they're dangerous emotions to sulk in, and what that sort of situation allows you to do is be in those emotions without any real danger. It's kind of like having a crash pad. Yeah, honestly.
Okay.
Plus, you're going to a lot of therapy. That's pretty much all you do all day.
Yeah, no, that's literally the only. You can go to therapy and you eat horrible hospital food.
God damn it.
I mean, like there's just counselors. Like the way you described it is just like either group therapy or there's counselors. You're talking to
group
all
therapy,
day.
Counselors, and a psychiatrist.
Nice.
And he's just like evaluating you, and like he's offering you meds, and they're not like too pushy with it, depending on like what level you're at. So for me, they offered me meds, and I was like, yeah, I don't really know if I want to. And they're like, well, if you want to,
here they are.
They're here. Yeah. If you don't want to, it's okay. I did try one day, tried Prozac, and I was like, it felt a little good for like the first hour, and then I was like, nah, I don't like this. I don't want to do this. I don't want to do meds.
Yeah.
And so, that first day, after really realizing the situation I was in, where I was like, oh, I'm on lockdown right now.
Yeah.
I definitely like cried myself to sleep that first night. And I remember my roommate coming in that night as well, and I just remember watching him like sitting on his bed, just like holding his head, not knowing what to do. And I was like, I feel you, dude. I definitely feel you. And then I remember waking up the next morning, and honestly, it was a weird feeling, because even though I was like in a weird place, when I first woke up, I kind of felt energetic and like alive a little bit. I couldn't check my phone first thing in the morning. I couldn't just dick around or do anything stupid. I was like, cool, I guess I'll get up, have some like tea and coffee, and just hang out and work on what I got to work on.
Yeah.
And so like the first full day was super weird, and it definitely made me feel like kind of a crazy person, because it's freezing in the hospital.
Yeah.
It's just freezing. And like, I don't have shit. And so I was like, okay, I got a blanket, and like everyone has blankets, and just walking around with blankets. And I really just felt like kind of like a little bit like I was in a proper nut house, because where it's just like,
everyone's just got
like
snuggies
5,
and
6
shit,
of
like...
us are walking around with like hospital blankets and our socks and shit, just like moping around. And I'm like, cool. I'm like here.
Yeah.
I never thought I would do this in my life.
Yeah.
And then, that day eventually like trying to wear the scrubs and everything and just like falling off all the time. And I was like, dude, can I just have my pants back? Like, cut the strings out. I don't care.
Take the strings.
Like, I don't care. And so, they gave me all my clothes back and everything. And then each day what I would do, or what we would do, is, there's a group of us, and we would go to these group sessions, and each of them was a little bit different. Some of them were just about the group getting together and kind of talking about trauma if they wanted to, or talking about something positive or goals they may have for when they get out and they get past treatment and that sort of thing. And some of them were different ways to deal with emotion, whether it be like breathing exercises or just different ways to kind of release. One of them, which is my favorite, was we actually had like a music session where she gave us like paper and stuff to like color and draw with. That's another thing too. You definitely feel like a 5-year-old again, because everyone's watching you all the time. You talk about your feelings and you color shit. And
nice. Little trip back to kindergarten.
I was like, this is a better experience than kindergarten was for me. I hated kindergarten. I was mad anxious all the time. Here I felt calm. I was like, cool, like dope. I'm drawing Bilbo's house. Sweet. And so like that one, we would sit, listen to music, and for each of the songs, we had to draw what it made us feel, what have you. So again, going back to Bilbo, number 3 was she played the Shire from Howard Shore. I forgot what the actual name of the song is, but she plays that, and I'm like, yeah. And I was like, oh yes. And so we just start like,
I don't know either.
Yeah, I forgot how it goes. At all for me.
Oh well, get your fucking Lord of the Rings together.
Max would be disappointed.
Disappointment. It's okay.
Fair enough. But yeah, so I draw Bilbo's house, and that made me feel really excited. And I think actually one of the best things about being in that situation actually was it allowed me to really, with no shame, really just be who I am and feel what I was feeling, because we're all in there for the same reason. And plenty of the other people were having it way worse than me and having way like heavier thoughts than I was. Like a good amount of them were involuntary. They had no choice but to be there.
Oh yeah.
So I'm there for like a week, 2 weeks, like that sort of thing. And it was just the hardest thing about it was being so kind of disconnected from the rest of the world and not being able to have fresh air or anything like that, or it's kind of weird when you left something in your room and they close all the doors and you're like, hey, can I get into my room so I can get like that piece of paper? Because I can't get in my room. And I remember like the first day I closed the door all the way to take a shower, and then someone came in while I was showering and was like, hey, you can't leave the door closed while you're showering. We have to make sure that you're okay. And I was like, oh, okay. Cool. Okay. Oh yeah, that's the other thing too, is like when you first get there and like after they eval you and stuff, they have to check your body for marks and everything like that. So I just had to strip down. They had like a blanket over me, and they're like, cool, now you can put it around your waist. And I just had to show them like my whole body and stuff and everything like that, which wasn't that bad, but like it still just was funny and kind of awkward. And it's just funny because I do parkour and I'm scraped up all over the place. And I literally trained like the Sunday before. And my forearms were all scraped up.
And shit.
Yeah, like my forearms were so scraped up and stuff from like climbing down walls and like dropping down garages. And I'm like, oh, what's all these scratches? So I was like, oh, I do parkour. And they're like, oh, okay, that explains it. And I was like, yeah, it's not me. Well, it is me, but but yeah, it was like, it's crazy too. Like the people you meet, it kind of gives you a bit more perspective on your own life and stuff like that. Like I'll leave names out and everything like that. But I did meet this one dude, and I was like, oh, what are you doing in here? Like he's like, oh, I'm voluntary. And I was like, oh, word. And he was asking me why I was in there and that sort of thing. And so I asked him, and he was like, hey, I'm trying to work on myself. And he's like, I'm also trying to detox, like come off drugs. And I was like, oh, well, what were you on? And just casually, he's like, meth. And I was like, oh, wow, okay. Like,
just a little meth.
That's pretty heavy. Fair enough, dude. Like, good on you for really working at it. And like, I give him props because he seems like he genuinely wants to work on it, but it's a hard one to work on for sure.
Big time.
And I'm hoping it goes well for him. 100%.
Shout out to our homie.
Shout out to the homie. And everyone else in there, like everyone else in there was, dealing with something that was real for sure. And I'm hoping that everybody gets out of there and learns something and is able to better their lives after it.
Yeah. Well, it seems like that place is given, like you said, it's a place where you can be yourself. You can be honest about these things. And that seems to be kind of like one of the themes here is like, just that is like part of the biggest thing is like, you need to be able to talk about it. You need to be able to like be open with all these emotions or thoughts, whatever you're dealing with, the problems that we're all facing. And like sometimes you have to go to a space that's made just for that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, because there's so few places in the world for people to have these kinds of thoughts, especially.
Yeah. And like, I think the thing is too, is like, there's a stigma from the media and everything like that, movies, TV shows about what these places are actually like. Yeah. And I'm not going to say, it's not like sunshine and daisies and everything. Like, it's not easy.
No.
But it's not a terrible place. And you might feel like shit. You might cry. You might be sad, or if you're like heavily suicidal, you'll probably still have your thoughts and everything like that. But overall, everyone's genuinely like insanely sweet and willing to work with you as much as they possibly can. Like obviously there's limits to what they can do. And, you deal with some people who are a little bit more angry and stuff like that sort of thing. Like there was this one dude in there and like he left on my first day that I was in, but I like met him in the morning and stuff, and he was like so mad at one of the nurses and was like ready to fight her, like straight up. Yeah. And he was like some dude I think that just got out of prison for like did like 10 years.
Oh shit.
And I remember I overheard something about him asking some dude, and he was like, "Yo, my boy got killed by some cartel. You think they'll come for me?" And I was like, yo, I don't even want to be a part of that shit. Like, nah.
That's intense, yeah.
And like, I think one of the weirdest things about it for me was, even though like everyone in there was like sweet and everything like that, there is that still little piece in your head that you're like, well, I am including myself in a building or in a, couple different rooms of people who are mentally unstable. And one of the things I was kind of worrying about was like, oh man, I hope someone doesn't like try to kill me. Because like that's a legitimate thing that you kind of have to think about.
With the drug cartel thing, it's like, and this is like it's kind of tough because it's like part of like why this place has to exist, right?
Yeah.
Is because when someone is having like extreme suicidal thoughts, or they're dealing with a lot of emotions, or they're becoming like angry and stuff, like often like the reaction is like, I want to distance myself from that person. Like I don't want to get involved, wrapped up in that, you know, thing, because people want to protect themselves. They're scared. They don't want to like get hurt emotionally, physically, whatever it is, by involving themselves with someone who's, and that's like why you bottle it in too, because you don't want to seem like one of those people.
That's
and
crazy.
then then people don't want to, but you need the help, you know?
Yeah.
And so
I think, honestly, one of the things that's made me scared about talking about, like, whether it be passive suicidal thoughts or just like active ones, is I get scared that people will think that I'm wanting to hurt them too, when it's just simply not the case. Like, I'm like, no, I don't want to hurt anybody at all. Like, I want everyone to be really happy, actually. Like, that's like the thing that makes me excited. And I really learned that in there, because you are around a lot of like sad people who are dealing with like real problems, and I couldn't help it. Like, I literally could not help it when I would see someone crying or like see someone hurting, and like trying to figure it out to be like, hey, can I help at all? Like, even if it's just like a hug, do you need a hug? Do you need to just let something out? Like anything. Yeah. And like, you know, there was one instance in particular, and you know, we were in a group, we were talking about affirmations, like kind of things you could tell yourself in order to be more confident in yourself, or at least like kind of
help nurture your self-esteem and stuff.
Give yourself just better treatment overall.
Yeah, because you got to love yourself.
Yeah, you definitely, you have to love yourself, and I'm starting to finally actually see that. Like for real, which is nice. I'm like, oh, this is what people mean. Okay. Like I've always had this weird thing in my head that loving yourself was somehow arrogant. Yeah. And it's like, no, loving yourself is good. Being overly absorbed in yourself is arrogant, and thinking that like you're perfect and that you can't better yourself in any way, that's arrogant. But being like, okay, I did these things well, I can still work here, but I'll be able to get better there. Yeah. That's loving yourself a bit more. And so, you know, this one girl, she was having a hard time saying, I think I'm worth it, if I'm not mistaken. I might be wrong.
Or something.
I'm important. It was something along those lines.
You told me.
And, you know, she's heavy anxiety, that sort of thing. And she was having a really hard time saying it. Like, she could not say it. They're like, come on, just say it. And she's like, no, I can't. I really can't. And she just kept like fighting back at it. And I know that feeling. I've done the same thing. People are like, oh, just say this, or just do this. And I'm like, I can't. And I can't explain it, but something inside of you definitely makes, like, it feels like there's a wall and then you can't get past it. Yeah. And so I related to it, and I saw her, and I was like, I feel like it can come off, and maybe it's just the way I think about it. It can come off as like being show-offy or whatever, but that wasn't my intent in any way. Yeah. You know, I saw that she was struggling, and I was like, hey, look, if you say it right now, I'll do a backflip, like right in the middle of the room. And everyone was like, wait, what? And then they looked at her and was like, no, you got to say it now. And then she like smiled, like looked down for a second, and was like, I'm worth it. And I was like, cool, got to keep my end of the bargain, kind of like nudge the counselor aside and did it right there. And everyone was like, wait, what? You actually did it? Like, oh my God. And then she was like, she seemed super stoked. And what I'm hoping, what it gave me is I'm hoping that now kind of sticks with her for the rest of her life in a way, meaning that like, maybe she feels like people do care and find her valuable. 100%. And that's what I want her to take from it. Not like, oh, that dude did a backflip, it was cool. I wanted it to be like, no, he did a thing for me that, no, for me it's whatever. But to like people who don't do any movement from the story, thing,
that's like you just wanted to help her get over this wall. Yeah, like I want to help. Yeah, and like she was willing to accept the help, which is like a huge step. Yeah, you know, and it like. Seeing her smile after that, and then talking with her, even you reaching out, like gave her the confidence to say it. You know? Yeah, you did the backflip, and then she said it. Yeah, it's like, oh, someone else struggling, like was willing to just put themselves aside and like do that sort of thing. Like it. When I was talking to her afterwards, I could hear the different tone in her voice from what she was like 15 minutes earlier, and I can't explain how good that felt to me. I can't explain like. It might sound lame, but the warmth that I kind of felt just like in my heart, like in my chest, it was just rewarding. And that's what's so weird and wild. Put a smile on my face. Right? The instinct is like pull away sometimes, but like it feels so much better to be a part of that and actually help someone out. Yeah. And like, and I realized
it's weird.
Yeah. So go ahead.
No, I realized when I was in there too, is like for all the group sessions, like I thought I hated talking and I thought I didn't like talking about anything. And I think it's more, I just need the correct stimulus a bit more and I need to seek it out myself. But for all the group sessions and everything like that, you know, there would be awkward silence. And even the counselors would be like, I don't care if it gets silent in here. Like, we're not going to treat it as awkward. Because we shouldn't, in reality. We shouldn't treat silence as awkward. I think that's what makes it harder for people to be open.
Yeah, because it's like,
they can't be silent
like
together.
building up the meter of like, all right, I'm about to say it. And then someone's just like, oh, it's too awkward here. Like, just say something bullshit just to like fill the silence.
Yeah.
It's like, and then you take that moment away where they might have like come forward.
Yeah.
So it's like, I don't know, maybe not. But
I can see what I think I can agree with that.
Just
I see what you're saying.
it's tough
people like try to fill the void with stuff that no one really cares about, and they don't even sincerely care about themselves that much. They just feel awkward in the silence, which I think is like separated me a little bit because I typically don't really feel awkward in silence. Like when people just stop talking, I'm like, yeah, we don't really have much to talk about right now. Who cares? Like, we're just friends. We hang out. Like, this is being a human. Sometimes you're sitting in the woods. There's nothing to say. And you're like, cool, let's stare at this tree.
Yeah, you give yourself space to come up with a thought, you know?
Yeah.
You know, just like,
you gotta let
all
it
right.
flow naturally, I think.
Yeah.
But what happened while I was in there was, for each of these group sessions, when people will get quiet and stop talking, I was the first one to speak. And try to get initiate everybody to be like, here, just like let it out. Like, there's no judgment. We're all here. Yeah, we're all here for the same reason. We all know why we're here. We all try to do the same thing, basically. Yeah, which is not a good thing. Don't try it. But I wanted everyone with me. Like, I wanted us all to come out of there feeling like it was a good experience for us and something that was beneficial, and to actually be able to continue pushing towards something positive in our lives and finding value within ourselves and being able to live a higher quality of life. And it also allowed me to kind of separate myself from technology and from the world a little bit, so I could really just focus on what was going on with me. And to be totally honest, you know, between the ages of like 8 to 13 for the last however many years, like 10 years or so, if not, 12 years, a lot of it's been pretty blank. Like, there's some stuff I was remembering, very little things, but especially by like halfway through the second day, it all like kind of started flooding back to me, you know, positive and negative between that. What is that? 4 years, 5 years? I don't know. You're better
8 to
at
13 is 5 years.
5 years. I'm bad at math. I'm not good on my toes with that. I'm bad with numbers in the head, but hey, but yeah, that's what really made me feel like it was actually a good thing for me, was because now, like right now, I can remember that part of my childhood. And throughout the experience, I realized, like, you know, I love my parents. They're great for me. They did a lot of really good things for me in terms of making sure I was fed, giving me the things I needed, like that sort of thing. But the one place I think they really failed, unfortunately, was learning to like discipline me and teach me how to deal with the real world a little more. And I think that's a huge problem that's kind of going on with our generation in general, which is part of the kind of building of chaos. So when I was talking to my psychiatrist, you know, there was a lot of chaos in my family. My parents would fight all the time. There's a lot of drama that happened later on, like in my teen years, that happened with my brother and his ex, with my niece and that sort of thing, you know, victim to someone who was lying about domestic violence, essentially. And especially that situation alone really screwed up like relationships for me and friendships. It's made it extremely hard for me to trust anybody, like at all. And throughout the chaos, what's actually happened to me, and it's part of why, I think at least, why I became so attracted to all like the really big, scary fear stuff. Because it's been that way since I was a kid. You know, I was always into the extreme sports, and I always wanted to go to the highest extreme of any of those things. Yeah. And I always wanted to do the craziest stuff and the scariest stuff and like the most chaotic stuff. And then even in my day-to-day life, I have a problem where I build chaos in my relationships, and I make my life chaotic kind of on purpose. And it's because I grew up so used to chaos.
That's
what
you're adapted to.
Yeah, I've adapted to being comfortable in chaos, so I try to make more of it. And it's terrible because I do things to my friends, like I need to talk to doctors and stuff like that, but I have an idea that maybe there's some pieces of like, not pieces, but borderline personality disorder. And essentially like one of the biggest ones that speaks to me is I do especially now consciously, I'm aware that one of the things I'll do is loved ones, friends, girlfriend, whatever, I'll love them and I'll give them all my love. And then once they start giving it back to me, I start to pull. And I start to try to like break the relationship almost. And then once it starts breaking and they start pulling away, I start pulling back.
Yep.
And that's not good to do to anybody ever. Like no matter what my circumstances were, no matter what's going on in my head or anything like that, that is still on me. And I think that's like kind of what I want put out there the most is like, no matter what your situation was, no matter what's happened to you, it is still ultimately, unfortunately, but it's just kind of the way the world works. It's ultimately still up to you to fix and to work on.
Yeah.
So those problems that I've caused and those relationships that I've harmed, it's up to me to fix them and work on them and to ensure that it doesn't happen anymore. And I mean, it's happened to so many of my friends. Like I even think about my time at Onnit when I was in Denmark, and those are like some of the closest friends I ever made in my life. And I've been thinking on it a lot lately, and I really realize how kind of at some points how terrible of a person I was being, and how they would try to show me love and I would shut them away and get mad at them and yell at them and like push them away. And, you know, literally people would ask me what was wrong and I would kind of like just run away. And I remember one day people were like wondering about me. So I was like, I'm just going to disappear for a little bit, went out into the rain, found some like weird hut that someone built in like a canola field or something, and literally just like lied down at it for like 2 hours while I was supposed to be in class. And just separated myself, and I was like, maybe I'll just walk away from here and just go somewhere. And I've been doing those sorts of things for so long, and it's time for me to stop and realize what it is I'm doing, and just really just not do it anymore and be the better person and and treat myself the way I deserve to be treated, and as well as treat the people who love me the way that they deserve to be treated, and give them the love that I have to give. Because like one of the things I talked about with one of the therapists is that I know I have a lot of love in my heart to give. Like I know that's one of the things I crave the most. It's being able to make a person smile, especially if that person's close to me. Like it's something I just thoroughly enjoy. It's something that makes me happy. But because of all the stuff that I've been dealing with, I haven't been able to let it out at all. And that's one of the things I think that's been hurting me the most. I haven't been allowing myself to be who I am in that way. And yeah, it's no matter what, no matter who hurt me, no matter what trauma I went through, no matter what, it's ultimately entirely up to me to fix the problem.
Yeah, and it's not going to be easy, right?
No,
like,
it's not going to be easy, and that's the thing. Like, nothing worth doing is ever really easy.
Yeah.
I mean, the hospital wasn't easy.
No,
but I'm
going
glad
off the
I
meds
did
wasn't easy. Like, your whole journey was like, you know, and it will be and has been peppered with more trauma, you know, in some ways, you know.
Yeah.
So you keep having to deal with things, but like what's inspiring is that you are honest about it. You come forward, you tell the truth, like you're open with your feelings. Like the more that you do that, the more I see you just growing and like going towards your goals, you know?
Because I mean, I feel like for so long I've been hiding it, and I'm kind of tired. I'm kind of tired of everyone else hiding it. I'm tired of everyone acting like nothing's going wrong with everybody.
Yeah.
And I'm like,
and
no, we're all going through something.
Wild, right? Is like the people get pushed to the brink. They become the people that actually bring us all back, because they, in a way, they crack and they're just like, I fucking can't do it anymore. I'm not bullshitting the world anymore.
Yeah, dude. Like,
fuck all you guys. Here's my problems. God damn it. At least I'm dealing with it, and I'm gonna be open with it. And then everyone's like, oh, thank God somebody said something.
Exactly. It's literally like I've been talking like, and it's oh my God, it's been so rewarding, because like, you know, since I got out, especially like first day, you know, people didn't know where the hell I was. My parents didn't know where I was. A lot of my friends didn't know where I was.
Yeah.
And so, you know, I had to make a lot of phone calls and be like, look, this is what happened. This is why you haven't heard from me.
Yeah.
But through explaining the entire experience and that sort of thing, people, those friends at least, they opened up to me about things that they wouldn't have before. And, you know, I was told that, you know, I could be I was an inspiration for them, or that I helped them feel strong enough to be able to say that thing. And even now, like, you know, for instance, my friend Christine, she had told me that she was really proud of me, and that, you know, the things that I've been doing, and especially because of this, that she now feels more comfortable being able to work on herself. And she thinks that she with the issues that she has, she can actually keep pushing forward and continue bettering herself and continue treating herself better. And even after she said that, I told her, I was like, I think that's the first time that somebody's told me something like that, and I actually believed it. Like I've never believed anybody when they've really told me anything positive about me. And I need to remind myself that it's not ignorant, not arrogant to think positively about yourself and to think that you did do something right. It's only thinking that like, oh, I did this thing, that means I'm great, I should, I'm in control of what everybody thinks. It's like, no, that's not true either. But like, I can recognize when something I did was right. And yeah, just as hard as the experience was, I feel like right now, so far, this has been the best opportunity for me to really learn about myself and to really work on me and actually push myself in the right direction. And then what I hope is that some people will be able to take something from it and work on themselves as well, and then continue to pay it forward. Yeah. No, I mean, do it for the next one.
I mean, I don't want to jump on the bandwagon, but you've given me space to work on myself just by helping you and like seeing what you're going through and seeing the bravery, the courage that you're showing and facing this stuff. It's absolutely like same thing with Christine. Like I feel better about working on myself, just like being inspired by your story and like your willingness to work on facing whatever demons you're facing, So I really appreciate it.
For sure. And it's really all it is like, I'm tired of hurting and I'm tired of seeing my friends hurt.
Right?
I'm just tired. I'm tired of like
we're all in it together.
Yeah, I'm tired of like
fuck's sake.
I'm tired of like people not really even knowing where to start or like what to do or feeling like they can't talk to anybody or really trust anybody or that they feel like they have to hide what's going on with them. And it's like, why are we shaming people for kind of stuff that they kind of in the first place weren't really that responsible for?
Yeah. Like everyone's got the trauma, like you said. We all grow up and like our parents did their best, but they fuck us up. Yeah. Or they didn't do their best and then they really fuck us up.
And I mean, I think everyone's like trying to do their best and like some people
society will get everyone's going through trauma. Yeah. But that's like why we all need to like work on it together instead of like no. Yeah. Put it in the basement. Nobody fucking talks about that.
It also displayed to me the importance of actually the kind of herd mentality that we have and sort of understanding that you do need other people a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Big time. It takes a village. That's like a very literal statement.
I used to be totally honest, I used to hate that. I used to find that as like,
it's not very stoic. It's not, in some ways it's not like, there's like that part of you that is attracted to like, I'm fucking independent.
Yeah.
Like I could do anything.
For some reason, I can't even pinpoint exactly why, but I definitely basically my entire life found the word social to be dirty.
Really?
Like I don't know, like it's literally that I would hear that word and I would hide it, but it would make me feel angry. And I think the reason it made me feel angry was because I didn't believe that I was supposed to be like that. And I was completely starving myself of something that I 100% needed. And I just didn't want to admit it. And then it got to the point where maybe it was some sort of subconscious jealousy that like, oh, all these people I know that are like, at some point I would consider acquaintances more than friends because I distanced myself so much. I would see how happy they were with other people and just be jealous that they were happy with other people and just get angry about it. But right now, at least I'm realizing that really I've been entirely wrong. I've been entirely wrong and I need my friends. I need my people. Like, it's still a little hard to say, honestly. But the more I say it, the easier it gets, the more I accept it. Not even just accept it, but the more I value it. And I'm like, okay, cool. Let me like do what I need to do for myself and stop lying to myself and act like I'm supposed to be some macho dude who's literally entirely on his own and super independent and doesn't need anybody.
Yeah, that's like the weirdness that like you kind of grow up with. That is like the mentality. That's part of our generation. But I think that's part of, again, what our story is going to be is we're reversing that, unpacking that. Yeah. And I hope that's part of our story as our generation is like we remove the stigma from all these things. Yeah. And we start talking about it. We start like giving people space to address this stuff and then we can all move forward. Yeah. Hey, what up, dude?
Oh, I'm looking at your toes.
Put the toes in the Dougie face.
Please don't.
But yeah, I think especially for me, I think one of the biggest reasons I had that mentality was kind of because of my dad, and not necessarily that he made me feel distance or anything like that, but he had a very traumatic childhood, and he was totally on his own by the time he was like 6.
Yeah.
And so he very much had this idea, and I think he still does, that he doesn't need anybody. And that being reinforced from
But I mean, like, he
age
has
4. I mean,
people.
He does.
And that's like the same thing with you.
Yeah.
I mean, like
You're like blind to it.
Yeah.
I'm blind.
Yeah.
I've been blind
You think
to
you
it.
build it from scratch. You're like, I fucking did this.
Yeah.
You know, that's like this ego thing when you start to like, you get trauma, right? And then you're like, fuck it.
Yeah.
I'll fucking cut all ties. Like, I'm going to build my own fucking world.
Yeah.
And then...
But either way, you still had people. Like for my dad's case,
exactly.
for instance.
Like, to think you did it on your own is ridiculous.
Yeah.
And like...
Like, I don't know, for his case, for instance, when he was like a 14-year-old and he wanted to learn to work on cars, he had someone older than him show him how it works. And he was like, hey, look, I'll come here, work for free, just teach me how cars work. And then eventually he learned how to be so good at it that they started, like, you know, paying him for that. That's like an example of someone kind of guiding you and you having people to rely on to make your life better.
Right. I mean, like, no, I mean, we are, this is like something that I also feel, because there's like certain political beliefs that people are like, oh, like, it's all me, you know, like, I mean, like, and it's difficult because it doesn't really work, especially not in our society. It's like no one is tilling their own land, driving on roads they created, not consuming energy from a grid that was built for the entire. It's just
Speak for
like
yourself, bro.
everything.
I'm off the grid.
I mean,
but like literally, we all are so interconnected, whether we want to admit it or not. Like the food you eat, the energy, like the heat in your house, the house you live in, the shoes on your feet, the clothes on your back, like all of it is from someone else's work. And I'm like, we are all dependent on each other, and like in the most fundamental way of just like survival, as well as like your emotional needs. I mean, like I think it's a really important lesson to learn that like you are never doing things completely by yourself.
No,
like you are never alone in your success, and you are never alone in your failure. It's always like the village. Like we all grow we all grow together, or we all sink together. And that's just like the mentality of the world.
No,
I think that ties into a lot of things.
I mean, it's entirely true. And
because like the individual has been like a part of the backbone of like what has given us so much as well.
I mean, it's kind of like
this
the American
ability to
dream.
celebrate people for their individuality and their original ideas and all this stuff, like that has given us a lot, right? So it's this double-edged sword. It's just like the internet. It's this idea of celebrating the individual has given us like empowerment to be like, all right, I'm going to go out and do the thing that I believe in and blah, blah, blah. But it's also like this dangerous substance that you can toy with that'll like conflate your ego or whatever and turn you into, you know,
well, I mean, I think
whatever, like what is that? You're breathing heavy. watch the breathing on that. You're like, I feel like you guys can't hear it because you have the headphones, but it's like
got the Vader over here.
Yeah, I got the Vader.
But I think, like, really, in reality, what it is that, I mean, I'm going to go off a little bit, but like where we are as a species right now is literally the product of people making mistakes and then other people learning from those mistakes and pushing it forward. I mean, literally the way science advances is from someone having an idea, someone challenging that idea, and then they both kind of realize, oh, wait, actually, we can progress from this idea. And then it just continues to evolve with each generation. We're here because generations before us made a mistake and we fixed the mistake.
Yeah.
And it's kind of how our society was just entirely built. It's like, oh, wait, that didn't work. We have to collectively figure out how
evolution
this
is
works.
In itself like a completely insanely group effort.
Yeah, well, I mean, even individually, like if you're going to go on about, I don't know, anybody who's discovered anything, they discovered it because they learned some techniques from somebody before them.
Exactly.
In some way or another.
Yeah.
Totes.
And I think it's just, we need to accept that, like, yeah, you may be an individual, but you didn't become your individual self without any help from anybody else.
For
It's
sure
kind of
not.
like the Malcolm Gladwell book, Outliers.
I haven't read it.
Oh, it's like,
I need to read.
it's a good
Me
book.
too.
I bought books yesterday. I'm going to start reading.
Oh, shit.
I actually bought a book on some of the stuff.
But I think it kind of ties in pretty well with this, that like the whole point of outliers, it talks about like the greats. So like you know, like the world class pianists, the world class like the people who play in the NHL, the
Wayne
people who
Gretzky.
invented Bill Gates, like shit like that.
Yeah.
Like it talks about these guys, and what he does is he breaks down like greatness is not achieved alone. Like, you know, there are steps towards greatness, but like greatness is a factor of luck, your surroundings, your upbringing. Like, I mean, like no person who has achieved anything great did it on their own. And like that, I think it's a really good book. There's a lot more to the book Outliers than just like we're all in it together, like kumbaya. But it's like it's a very interesting book on like a lot of shit is just circumstantial. Like it's a lot of just like
being at the right place, at the right time.
Right place at
like,
the right time.
I
With
think
the right background.
What's dope about like an outlier though is that they probably embrace the group, right? Like they know how to utilize their group. They know how to utilize the positive energy and like build off of that. Like they become celebrated because they, you know, but they're kind of like chosen by like fate almost. It sounds like is what they're saying. And it's just like, all right, that person is that way. They had to dedicate, like them and the team had to dedicate themselves to something, and that's like, you know. So, then again, like with our dumb brains, we're like, oh, we can't pay attention to 16 different people. Like Bill Gates, he did it. That guy is a fucking man.
Yeah.
But ultimately, you know, we don't have time to hear all the story about it. But
like Bill Gates was like surrounded in a community, and like he had, but like something like interesting. I mean, like there's 10 out of 10. Read the book. Like anyone listening,
Outliers.
Definitely read that book.
Give it up to Outliers real quick.
It's a good one.
Woo!
Yes.
Outliers.
But
teeny hand, tiny hand.
I mean, yeah, like Bill Gates was like a good example, but like something interesting that I love from that book that I thought was very interesting was if you look at like a distribution of like NHL players, people who are professional hockey players, people who are born in the beginning of the year, so like January, you have a higher percentage or a higher chance of getting to a professional league, because the way like the cutoff, or at the time when the book was written and the studies were done, that like the way the cutoff works, that like if you're born in January, you'll be the oldest you possibly can be for that league year, and so therefore you'll always be like bigger, faster, stronger, and you'll like, I mean, you have like a lot of reinforcement that like if you're bigger, faster, stronger, you're always like, you know, 10, 11 months. Like if you're the oldest you can be for that age group, you'll always be the best, you know, and you get nurtured up through the levels.
Yeah,
always,
and then they're just like, oh, that kid rocks. And you get all that positive reinforcement. It's a positive feedback loop.
Yeah.
It happens in nature, right? Yeah. The tree that grows like just ahead of all the other trees, all of a sudden
gets the most sun.
Just skyrockets and becomes like this huge structure and becomes like hundreds of feet taller than any tree around it.
Just because it grew a little faster.
But just because it's basically chance in some ways.
Well, and so that's what it brings up.
I forget what that law is, but it's an interesting.
The whole book is like kind of about how like success is not individual.
Yep.
And a lot of times it's not even something you did. It's a lot of just like,
don't mistake yourself for the wave that you're riding, right?
Exactly.
It's like
there you go. That's the words. There it is.
It just like reminds me.
Is that what it's from? Is that from that book?
I don't think that statement. I've never heard that before.
You're the surfer. You're not the wave.
I love that.
Some shit.
Don't mistake yourself for the wave you're riding. I like that. That's a good one.
Anyway, that's a really good one.
And on that, maybe we wrap this up. You know, I think like that was a really, really inspiring story, dude. Like, I just want to thank you again for coming on and sharing like so much. I mean, I don't know if there's other stuff that we haven't covered that you want to cover, but
not particularly. The biggest thing I really just want to say is that if anybody gets anything from this, I'm not trying to put a story out there so that I can get like a sob story or anything like that. I just want, I want people to know that you should talk, you should seek out the people you need. Yeah. And that you shouldn't be afraid of your emotions. You shouldn't be afraid of what you're feeling. You shouldn't. Hell, if you have to go to a mental hospital for a couple of days, it might suck a little bit, but it's brighter on the other side, honestly. And I just want people to be able to feel comfortable being themselves and to be able to get the help they need and realize that they don't have to entirely be alone and that there is a way to solve the problem. It is up to you. You're going to have to work. You're going to have to put the energy and deal with the hard parts. Yep. It's not going to be easy. It's going to, you have to grit your teeth and kind of muddle a little bit.
And it's front loaded, it feels like, you know, because like when you turn around and finally start working on it, that's when it's the hardest.
Yeah.
It's
I
like
think
everything.
the really
Yeah.
First steps are the hardest.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly what Danny said. The first steps are the hardest.
Mhm.
Like, just like anything else, any
Yeah.
sport, anything. When you first start learning it, you're like, "What the hell is this?"
Yeah.
And then some time passes by, and before you know it, you're not even really thinking about it as much anymore. And you're like, "Oh, when was that hard? Oh yeah, I forgot how hard it was in the beginning."
Mm.
And
You should journal.
you should journal. Yeah,
so that you can
I
look
should
back
journal.
and like figure out like your growth and stuff. That's a really cool part of journaling, is being able to look back and like remember how or when things were hard.
And you
Mm.
said that to me before, and I'm gonna listen to it for real this time.
Say
I
that.
I'll be
apologize
your
for not
journal
in the
buddy,
past.
dude. I'm gonna start my journal. We'll be fucking solidarity journaling.
What?
And there's something really big about writing things down, a way that it like
It kind of helps you get it out of
connects
your
and,
head a
like,
little bit.
yeah. There's I forget what the
Yeah, my therapist
is
explained
there.
it to me, but I'm not.
Pen to
I'm
paper.
not.
yeah, we're not therapists. And yeah, this I'll add in the intro,
Yeah.
but it's
Yeah,
like
don't worry.
clearly like if you need medical advice, blah blah blah, like that disclaimer.
Yes.
This
Yeah.
isn't like we're not professionals.
Yeah.
We are here to share like our own thoughts and hopefully give people like what you've given me and what I know that is going to be giving to other people listening,
Yeah.
which is just like I don't know, just a place to feel better about going and facing those demons and being inspired to
And I mean,
do the work.
like I don't think like I don't know, that greatness doesn't come easy. It's you literally can't be better for yourself in an easy way. It's just not. It's just
I was like,
not,
where are you
yeah.
going with this?
it's not possible. And like you can't. I don't know. I feel like anything worth really doing is just sometimes it's gonna suck and it's gonna hurt,
Yeah,
and you
big time.
kind of have to be okay with that. Because to be totally honest, the best way I can put that is that's life. Life hurts sometimes.
Yeah.
And just really, really don't. If you need professional help, get professional help.
Yeah.
Like it helps for real.
Big time.
Cool.
All right, my guys, girls,
Guys and gals.
my guy and gal. I mean, you guys are each other's guy and gal, but you're mine too.
Oh baby.
I mean, hey, wait, the camera. Hey, what am I saying here?
No, get out of here.
Yeah, let's get a shout out to everyone listening, and like Nick said, come talk to us. Probably, I'm sure you'd love to talk about it. I'd love to talk about it with you guys, and let's all like do the work and make more space to share our emotions.
Value yourself and love yourself.
Yeah.
Straight up.
All right, man. I love you.
I love you too.
I love you.
Love all you guys out there.
I love everyone listening and watching. Thank you guys for joining us. We out.
Bye.
Peace.
All right. Thank you guys again so much for listening and joining us in this discussion. Like I said, during and before the podcast and now, like, seek the help you need. There's going to be a link to the suicide prevention hotline in the episode description. And also, it's been a while since I've had a post podcast episode, little end cap for you, but I just wanted to open this up. And I listened to another podcast recently that I think is very relevant. It touches on a lot of the same things we covered in this episode. And it's for this guy, Kyle Kingsbury. He runs the Onnit Human Optimization podcast. And you guys know how I feel about Onnit. I fucking love that shit. I love their products, their supplements and everything. And I like just what the whole brand's about. I'm a pretty big fan of Kyle Kingsbury's and the founder, Aubrey Marcus, is really how I got involved in all that. But, and Joe Rogan actually is another part owner of the company. All people that I'm more or less stoked on. But anyhow, his podcast, which again is going to be the description, is going to be How to Get Back Up, is what that episode's called. And it just is the similar thing. It's just his story of his own bout with suicide and suicidal thoughts. And then just, he's a little bit further down the road than us. He's like, I think 35, and like he's just came out the other side even further. It seems like he's got some really good actionable advice and just a little bit more perspective for you guys. So if you want to keep that discussion going, or if you gained anything from this discussion, I'm sure you'll gain even more from, listening to this other podcast. So I'll throw that in the description as well. That's it. Much love, you guys. I'll see you next week. We'll be right here. Peace.